Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Pulcinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I have a super special guest to bring to you. For anybody that has been following my stories or has heard me talk about this, I got the amazing opportunity to be a part of a public speaking event hosted by Heroic back in February, and I met some amazing people in there, and one of those absolutely amazing, energizing people that I met with was Troy. So Troy, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. As I shared with you when we were just kind of briefly talking, your spirit was incredible when we met at Heroic. Your energy, just your aura, and it's just a blessing to be on this podcast and just have you as a new friend. And I'm just so blessed and thankful.
Oh, thank you so much, Troy. And you were just like the cheerleader for everybody the entire time. So it was the best energy with all the people there. So without further ado, everybody, I welcome Troy to the podcast. And Troy, please do us all a favor and tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do.
Yes, so hello everyone. My name is Troy Alexander. I am the founder of T363 SKIN. I'm a motivational speaker and I advise companies. But really, my whole mission and purpose really is to help men be better, to live in their truth, to love themselves, to respect themselves, but most importantly, understand who they are. And that's my mission and my quest. So I speak at colleges, universities, and correctional facilities. I've spoken at NYU. I've spoken at USC. I've spoken at Holt International Business School, Savannah College of Art and Design, just to name a few, and Farmington Correctional Center in Farmington, Missouri. And my mission, as I shared, is just really about to impact, inspire, and uplift men, because I think we're in this moment that men are struggling. Whether you are rich or poor, men don't really understand who they are and what their purpose is. And I work with men and young adults to help them understand that.
Oh, and it's such a beautiful testament to who you are and the way that you come across as well. I love following your LinkedIn. You have such amazing posts on there, and the way that you address everyone is what we should be striving for, right? Which is no matter who it is that you come across, whether it's someone that's big and famous and owns a lot of things, or the cab driver that you're with, it's the way that you treat people, and that should be fair across the board. And so I love that you come across with this genuineness, and I'm totally with you. I think that we are in a space where men have felt forgotten for a really long time. There's been a huge movement with women. Love my ladies, so nothing against you guys. And we can't expect our men to be able to have safe spaces or feel like they can talk with us if we don't allow them to actually have those spaces and to be able to deal with things in a direction that works best for them. And I learned that really, I don't want to say the hard way, but it was definitely an interesting path by having two boys and realizing that their anger tends to be our sadness, and the way that they handle a lot of things is very different than the way that we do. And at the same time, they still are going through the motions, but unfortunately there isn't as much of this empowerment of men that there is of women, because we do have those men that have created a space that makes it feel like it can't be like that. But there are so many out there, great men just like you, that are striving for this and they're looking for that space. And so I love that you're creating this platform for men to feel like they can be heard, to walk through as well.
As you said, men don't have this. Women have this nucleus, this group that they can kind of like lean on. And I have many conversations with men over my lifetime. And recently I was in Miami at a friend's house, and I didn't know this story. I've known this man for about 15 years. And he opened his heart. He's 56 years old. He opened his heart and told me about his two failed divorces and what transpired in that and how he's still struggling. I met a man who went to the juvenile system in Massachusetts when he was 14. He's now 56 years old. And he told me that it took him 40 years to get over that. And
Mm.
so there's these stories, there's these millions of stories of men who you can't even fathom that they're going through this, but they're taking on this pain, they're taking on this identity, and they have no one to talk to. They have no one to talk to, right? And they could be living in $1 billion home, or they could be working at McDonald's. They have these stories that no one is there to help them and to give them guidance. And that's what we're here to do. I fundamentally believe that we're all on this earth to make the next person better.
I love that. And you got to give everybody a little bit of background too, as to, how this kind of became a thing for you and why you have such a passion behind feeling like they need this space, and, all these components that come around it, because your story really is amazing and inspiring as well. And it shows just how our guys are going through the depths of things as well, and they are needing that support. They're asking for that support. It's just in a different way than what we women might be looking for.
Yeah. So when I was a young man, I went to prison for 2 years, and it changed the trajectory of my life. I didn't grow up in any impoverished neighborhood, not to say that you have to grow up in an impoverished neighborhood, but I got in a fight and it changed the whole trajectory of my life. And I was in prison with hardened criminals. And I was 20, 21. I didn't realize what that world was like. And that is a different world in there. That is a real world in there, right? There's hierarchy in that world. And I learned the lessons because I had angels along the way. Like, I remember this orderly would always tell me that you don't belong in here. Or I met this correctional officer that said, God has a bigger purpose for you. And I just started to really kind of like listen to people. I had a cellmate that told me, young blood, because that's what he used to call me. He was like, if you study the men in here, meaning the prison walls, and behind the bars, they're the same men outside. They're just dressed up. And
Mm.
when he told me that, that makes sense. The same man that you may see at a restaurant or a bar is the same man in prison. He's just dressed up. The same mindset, the same behavioral patterns, and all of that. And so I had an opportunity to really study men for 2 years. And there's rich men in prison, there's poor men in prison, but there's still men, and you get a true understanding of what they're about and what they want out of their life. And so I began to really learn and study. Was that process painful for me? Absolutely. I cried many a days. I learned about myself, and I think I had 2 years to really kind of understand about life. I was celibate for 2 years. I never did drugs. I didn't drink. I didn't do anything. So all I had to do was read a dictionary, read the Bible, and just sit with myself. And I began to look at this concrete wall every day. And so I could decide or understand when it was going to rain or when it was going to be cloudy, because I had a sliver of a window. So I always just kept looking at that window. And then I kept looking at those steel bars and that concrete wall. And every day I just kept dreaming, and I just kept looking and looking and looking. And eventually I could visualize my life. And my cellmate told me one thing. He said, You got to go out there and do something, and then people will listen to you. And I have been on this quest to do something so people can listen to me.
Mm. I think that it's a really unspoken piece about those that are in the correctional facilities and the statistics behind those that end up back in that space because like you said there it is its own world, it is its own environment, and there isn't a lot of re-education from my understanding. There's not a ton of how do we make them better. It's just kind of we accept them for who they are. They made a mistake, but we're going to keep that mistake here and we just kind of let them be. It's wonderful to know that you had the opportunity to be around people that were still positive in some regard with you because I have talked with others that I've heard stories that aren't as lucky, right? And it's just it's interesting when you think about being in a space where you only have you and you're faced to face yourself and then make the decision of what do I want to do? What do I want to be? Which direction do I want to take my life? And then making the choice of, am I actually going to do this? Or is it easier to sit in self-pity and just hope that one day it will be different?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I tell people this all the time, and to your point, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of stories in there that's not my story, and I respect everybody's story. But what I believe is that for me, it was the prayers of my grandmother and many people. Because when I went in there, I was angry, I was frustrated, I was upset at myself for what I did because I put myself in there. No one put myself in there but me. And then to have these correctional officers that would walk by and say the things they said to me, like, you don't belong in here. God has a bigger purpose. I mean, that was a continuous thing. And so those were angels that God had put in my life to guide me through that process. I still had to endure that process, but I realized over time that they served a purpose. And I realized that, yes, there, as I shared, there's a hierarchy there, but I realized that I don't want to surround myself with that, because if I surround myself with that, I go down that path. And
Mm,
so I had to make a decision. And a lot of men in there, they don't make those decisions. And I realized that I had to make my own decision to be able to get out of that situation, to be able to fulfill myself. And I started reading. Every chance I got a chance to go to church, I went to church. And I'm not saying that I'm holier than thou, but I really started to work on myself and understand my faith. And I realized that, everything that I've been able to accomplish outside of that, it was all because of God and because of my work ethic and because I show up. I'm positive, I'm caring, I'm loving, and I believe fundamentally energy comes back to you and goodness comes to you.
mm. So when you came out of that situation, I know you said that, you had the ability to study men for 2 years, right? And understand them. What were some of the things that you feel like you learned that would be really important for other people to know, whether it's mental capabilities or anything like that? What do you feel like needs to be talked about more that you saw on such a large scale?
Yes, understanding the power of your mind. When you're able to sit with yourself, that's why meditation, people always talk about meditation, because you sit with yourself and you clear your mind out, right? The mental strength is what's required to be able to solve any problem or go through any situation. And I saw a lot of men who were doing 50 years that had the strength of Bruce Lee with their mind. I mean, I can't even fathom doing 50 years in prison and
Yeah.
having the mental strength to be able to get up every day, to not be angry, to not want to fight, to not want to murder, to not want to do anything. Have that ability to know that you have to keep going on and you still give people respect, you give people honor. And that was the biggest thing, is the mental strength that everyone must require to achieve anything that they want. And then I learned the the love, right? Like, you have to most importantly love yourself. And
Mm,
I've been around a lot of men that may have the cars, may have this and may have that, but don't love themselves.
yeah.
Like, don't pour into themselves. and don't talk to themselves, don't respect themselves. And those were the major things that I learned in prison was most importantly respect, loving yourself, and having the mental strength. Those were the three things that I took from being behind those bars for 2 years. And those three things I've implemented into my life every day and every day. And also, if you want to do a fourth, the habits, right? Reading, journaling. Journaling played a big part in my life because it saved me. Because I still have all of my prison journals when I was in prison. I still have them now. And I'm 49 years old and I still have all of my prison journals. And I've been out of prison for 25 years. And I still have all those journals and I still have all those words. Like, we have these hats that we're making. And one of the words that I wrote was, I went from a number to a name, from a sentence to a story. And that's who I am. And I'm learning to turn my pain into triumph. And I've had a lot of help. I've gone to therapy. I have worked on myself. I continue to work on myself. I continue to journal and I continue to put one foot forward. And I realize that if I give and I give and I love, goodness comes back to me.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing this because, again, we don't talk about these kinds of things as openly as we should. It's so easy for us to get caught up in the judgment of others or the shame that we felt of the things that we went through, forgetting that everyone around us has gone through some form of their own shame, and you would probably never know it, right? I talk about this a lot. I worked in a medical facility for over 5 years in an abusive relationship, and no one knew about it. We have the ability to hide those scars so much. And unfortunately, because we do that, we miss out on these opportunities to have these open conversations, which actually end up being, in my personal opinion, very healing, not only for ourselves, but for others around us that are still trying to navigate and figure out what is important to them, what matters to them, and where they want to go while they're still beating themselves up. So thank you for sharing that on such a level of depth, because the capacity of mindset shift and talking about, these habits that you have, that is something that all of us as a human race should be paying more attention to: how to love ourselves, how to be more vulnerable, how to be more open. This isn't even a man or a woman thing. Us women talk about this and being vulnerable, but guys are wanting to talk about it too. And so that's the component that I want people to understand: is this is not a male versus female thing. This is a human race thing, but we keep making it gender specific, forgetting that we all have traumas and hurts and guilts and shames and things that we hide from because of what the other may think.
Yeah, and I mean, drop the mic for what you just said, because everything you said is absolutely true. I think men as a whole, we have to learn how to communicate better and we have to learn how to be vulnerable. So much pressure is put on us, and it's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves, because if we learn how to ask and we learn how to communicate, a lot of men's lives would be much better. And I think that is what we need to do. There's so much division in this world, but collectively, look at you and I. We're sitting together and having an amazing conversation that's just flowing freely and beautifully about life. And if more of us could do that, we could start really impacting lives.
Yeah, 100%. And women say that they know how to communicate, but as someone who was raised with two younger sisters and a great family and kind of a daddy's girl, I don't feel like I ever really knew how to express my feelings and stuff like that. So there's a lot of women in this world too that don't know how to express themselves or be vulnerable, because there are a lot of us that have been taught the same thing, right? Toughen it up, you're good, keep on going. And those are the foundations that we're built on. And what's happening is we're now passing that down to the
Yeah.
next generation, right? That was something hard that I had to learn with my two boys was I don't want them to be like that and I want them to be able to be open. Well, holy crap. If I'm going to do that, that means I actually have to be vulnerable with my kids. That means I actually have to tell my kids of the screw ups that I feel like I did. That means I have to tell my kids when I feel like I didn't do best enough for them for the situations that we were in and cry in front of them while they're trying to explain to me that it was their own decisions for the things that they did. These are the kinds of conversations that need to be starting at a much younger age so that we are creating a society where this isn't a taboo conversation
Yeah.
or this isn't someone that makes people feel awkward when they're sitting in their seats because they're like, oh God, they're talking about this. This becomes the normal types of conversations. This, like
Yeah.
you said, this is how we evoke change.
Yeah. It's and to your point, and it just really made me remember this. I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and I had one of the most amazing conversations with my Uber driver. And I'm thinking about creating a series on this because I travel a lot and I have amazing conversations with men. But to piggyback on the point that you just made, the gentleman told me, he said, do you know 70% of marriages end in divorce? And I said, okay, continue. And he said, what happens is this: most men marry the wrong woman. And then when they marry the wrong woman, that woman conceives a child, and that child is every day with the wrong woman, and she is permeating his brain and teaching he or she various things from the trauma that she has induced, from the pain that she has suffered, and that creates that child, and that child, as she or he grows up, runs with the same trauma from both parents. And so many times, so many of us are with the wrong individual, he said, and the wrong individual continues to create this world. And that hit me. And I'm like, wow, because when you think of all the trauma that a lot of us adults have today about not being able to communicate, not being able to do all these things, we all have to go back and understand, who did our parents really conceive with? I can speak for myself. I love my mother with all my heart, but I know she realized she conceived me with the wrong guy because my father, who I call my sperm donor, was never around. I met him one time when I was 5 years old. So if you think about that trajectory, that point affected my life, and I didn't realize it affected my life. And years later, it led me to prison. And so when he said that to me, that struck a chord, because I'm like, yeah, my mother did wrong, conceive with the wrong guy, and that affected my life. And when he shared that with me, I was like, wow, because that is actually the truth. Because I had all of that trauma, and a lot of us have that trauma. They may not go to the extreme of what I did, but they're in bad relationships. They may be in terrible situations. And so I think we all need to really understand who our parents were with and why we came in this world. And then we need to understand who we're going to deal with to be able to make sure that that generation, if we have kids, isn't affected.
Mm. This is an interesting perspective. And I would even go as far as to say, maybe it's not even that it's the wrong person, but it's a simple fact that you were attracted to somebody that was unhealed. And if both of you are unhealed individuals, then what you are doing is you're creating this beautiful trifecta that then is formed into the birth of a child. And unfortunately, that child then carries the traumas of both the parents, both the male and the female. And so it kind of comes back to what you were saying earlier of why it is so important that we love ourselves. And when we learn to love ourselves first, we then start to learn to heal the traumas and the wounds that we have so that when we are with someone, we have the ability to continue to heal each other, which then creates a healing space for the child to be in later on down the road. I do believe that we're always going to have traumas and things that affect us and decisions that people are going to make that are completely out of our control. It's just based on the situations or, whatever we happen to step in. But I do think that it definitely starts with what are you choosing to heal or what are you not choosing to heal? And are you getting in yourself in a situation where you both are so unhealed that you end up bonding over that? And instead of utilizing that space to be like, how can we be better? It ends up turning into arguments and fights of who is right and who is wrong because neither one of you know how to be able to be open or help the other person heal.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on with that. I mean, you took it a level higher, but you're absolutely spot on with that. I mean, that's the beautiful part of this.
Yeah, definitely. I thank you for having these kinds of conversations. And I think it's a really great way to get people's brains open and get them flowing and get people thinking on a micro different of a level. Whomever is listening to this, if there's something that you heard and it knocked a chord or it made you twinge or it sparked something, pay attention to that, right? Because it's those small things which are going to enact that change down the road. So something has caught your attention for some reason. Now it's your responsibility to look into that to decide what that is and what you want to do with it. So as we move forward, you talk about being in prison and coming out of that and changing this trajectory of your life. Where did that mindset kind of lead you down? Because you said it's been 25 years since you've been in that. So, how did it look afterwards? Do you feel like you kind of put yourself on the right path? I mean, I know you've got a company now that you own and some great things that you're doing, but has that always kind of been a part of that? Or is that something you feel like you kind of grew into as you continued to heal?
Yeah, I think, for me, as I shared with you earlier, I began to look at that concrete wall every day and I began to visualize my life. And journaling saved me, right? And so those two things, looking at that concrete wall every day and seeing through it and seeing the abundance of this great world. And I started again train myself. And when I got out, as again, I was very blessed and privileged. I went back home to a two-parent household. My mom remarried. I went to a two-parent household, so I didn't have any struggles. I just walked right back into a life. Yes, I had to figure it out. I was on probation. I had to do all of that, but all these angels and all these things helped me. And my parents had the means, so they sent me to therapy when I got out. And my therapist used to always ask me, bring your journals. And I would bring my journals and I wrote anything and everything that I wanted to accomplish in life. I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to do all of these things. And I remember years later, I went back to go see her and she says, bring the journal. And we crossed out all the things that I had wrote in prison that I wanted to accomplish. And I did it because I kept with my mental strength. I kept with the respect and I kept with that great positive attitude. And through my life, it's been nothing but angels. It's been nothing but God has placed some incredible, amazing angels in my life to help guided me and helped me. So I can only share for whoever's listening, life is challenging, life is hard. But if you show up every day and you believe, regardless of your religious beliefs, my grandmother shared this really great scripture that I will always remember. And it says, ask and you will find, ask and you will find, knock and the door will be open, and seek, you will find. And you never know how long you're going to take to ask. You never know how long it's going to take to seek. And you never know how long it's going to take to knock. And
Mm,
that could be 15 years of knocking on a door. That could be 20 years of knocking on a door. But if you keep doing that and you keep believing, all of those things are going to happen to you.
I
And
love
that's
that.
that's what I've been doing. I've been knocking, I've been seeking, and I've been asking. That's what I've been doing since I've gotten out of prison. And those three things have led me to where I'm at today. And I'm not afraid of the word no. And I just show up with love and respect, and people will be angels in your life. Look at you and I. Look at you and I. This is a pure example.
Hmm. And what's really interesting, is everything that you're saying in some form or fashion I feel like is also a fear of other people's, right? It was a fear of mine, and it still is occasionally. There's times where I feel it and I know I have to push past it, whether it is, are they going to say no? Is this door going to open if I ask? Or whatever that may be in that moment. And I think that fear ends up being the biggest component that tends to keep us from pushing forward to something that we know we ultimately want to be able to do. So I think that there's a truth in this conviction of how you feel and knowing that you are in that space, you know what you want to do, and making that decision to the point to where it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say. It doesn't matter what anybody else has to show. It doesn't matter what anybody else can prove from their perspective. Once you are landed in that space wholeheartedly, you are going to waver a little bit. There's always going to be challenges. You're still going to fail through things. But when you can find the lessons that's in that and you find the gratitude, then you find the opportunities. And when you can find those, that's how you continue down that path. And again, what does that come? That comes back to that self-love, right? That internal invalidation, that understanding of who we are, which is something that I think a lot of us are striving for still to this day. And I've met people of all ages and races, and it's the same story. We all end up having the same struggle.
Yeah, we all do, and I think, in my humble opinion, the reason why we all have the same struggle is because 99% of people aren't walking in their purpose.
Mm,
If you're walking in your purpose, you don't have the struggle. And that's what I believe, right? And understanding that it took me years to getting to my purpose. And now I feel like I'm in my purpose and I'm thriving even more. As I listen to you, and I'm just making this assumption, it may have taken you years to get into your purpose. And look how bright you're shining. And that is the key that we all have to get to. We all have to get to our purpose, and the light shines for us.
I do agree with that. And I think that when you get into that kind of a space as well, it also opens the mind up to be able to see the possibility. So many times we get stuck in this moment in that space and we shut out those small opportunities that could be standing right in front of us. That door that you've been knocking on that all of a sudden has a slight crack and you're missing it because of the way that you are seeing the world. And it takes a complete mind shift to be able to say everything is happening for me and not to me. That is a very different place to be in. And I have been in both. And I can tell you that I definitely enjoy seeing the world as what opportunities is it presenting to me versus why is this happening to me?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think we all have to experience this. We all have to go through this. And I think, it makes you a better person. It makes you a better person to go through trauma, to go through tough times, to go through, bad relationships. Like I've learned so much on my journey of 25 years that yes, there are bad people in this world, but there are good people in this world. There's amazing, like there's so much abundance in around us. There's so much love. There's so much joy. It's like, how can you wake up with a bad attitude? Like when there's so much goodness around us,
Yeah.
and the goodness starts with, again, loving yourself, and most importantly, looking in the mirror every day that you're alive and you got an opportunity. Like every morning I wake up around 4:45, 5 o'clock. And the first thing that I do, I get on my knees and I pray to God. And I've been doing this for years. And I ask God every day, what good things are going to come into my life today? Who am I going to bless and who's going to bless me today? And that's how I lead my day every day. And you were a blessing. I met you. Like that's my routine. And those are my habits.
Yeah. And those habits are so important. They really truly are. So as you now do these motivational speeches and you're moving men forward to understand how we as a society can be better and how they can communicate more, what do you feel like is one of the bigger components that you want society to see? If you could wave a magic wand.
Stop the division. We all need each other.
Mm,
There's too much division amongst men and women. There's too much competition amongst men and women. We all need each other collectively to be able to contribute to this great land that we live in. And that's what, if that magic wand, that's what I want to do. Wave that wand. We need each other.
yeah.
And we got to learn how to get back to respecting each other. And that's the key. A lot of us don't respect each other. We're all the
Yeah.
same. If I cut my wrist, and you cut yours, is the same blood as red. So we need to get back to respecting one another, and we need to get back to being kinder to each other. There's nothing wrong with saying hello. There's nothing wrong with smiling. There's nothing wrong with any of that.
Hmm.
And that's how I want to wave that wand.
Yeah. Ah, I love it so much. So on top of all the crazy things that you're doing, you also run a skincare company. I want you to tell everybody a little bit about this as well, because I think I love that this is in addition to all the things, and you have so many pieces and components of you that just like interweave and intertwine that all have this meaning together. So I would love everybody to know about this
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, so I am launching a skincare company called T363 SKIN. T is the first initial of my name, and 363 is the last three of my prison number. And it's really about impacting, empowering, and teaching men to love themselves. If a gentleman who has gone to prison can turn his life around to build something that is impactful and powerful, all of us can turn our lives around no matter where we are in our journey. And the product is for men of all skin tones. We're launching with one product first, which is a moisturizer, because all men have heard that word. And so we have two renowned chemists. We have, some really great investors. I have a really good operations team. I have a really incredible COO. She used to be the former CEO and president of Laura Mercier, and she was the global president of Avon. My lead investor is the former CEO of Anheuser-Busch. My other investor is a celebrity esthetician. And so I really have something really impactful and powerful that people are getting behind. And, we have a really incredible social impact behind it. So when I was in prison, my parents, again, had the means that my mom could drive and see me, because what most people don't understand, prisons are in the middle of nowhere. And there's a reason because of that. And so there are a lot of individuals in there who haven't seen their loved ones in years, because the commute and the journey that it takes. And so we're looking to partner with Uber, Lyft, and to be able to bring a rideshare program for various states to be able to transport their family members to see some of these inmates. And that is something that I'm very proud of, and something that I really want to do to help men, because it's lonely in there, but having a visit can change your life and can change your mind, and it can change your heart and soul.
Oh, I love this so much. And that's so important. And it's really interesting. And obviously I haven't been in that world, but I never thought about that, about how many don't get those visits because of where prisons and stuff have been put. I understand why. And you're right. It is so important to have that outside love, to know that somebody still cares, to not have to feel like you are absolutely and completely alone, which again, I've talked to several that have stories like that, that did do something different with their lives, but it's just that extra layer of challenge that they have to get through. So, how beautiful is this for you to be able to create something that not only can help and empower men and gives them something that is theirs, but also for such an amazing cause as well. I can't thank you enough for that. That's so awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Listen, my mottos I shared with you before, we're all here on this earth to make the next person better.
I agree with that 100%. So, if you could leave everybody with one thing, what would that one thing be? What would be something you'd leave the audience with?
Buy a journal and start writing your thoughts down.
Mm,
Get out of your mind, write your thoughts down, and it will start to transform your life.
definitely. Definitely. It's so funny is you say that because I remember the first time that I had a coach of mine that told me to get a journal out and I was like, this is the stupidest thing ever. Well, I don't want to write a dear diary. Like nobody wants to do that crap. Who wants a dear diary? This is how I felt. So, but you're so right because when I started doing it, it was game changing. So, to anybody out there that felt like I did, let me just give you a different twist on it. Let me give you a different perspective of what Troy means as well. And it is when you are journaling, don't think of it as you are writing this diary entry. What you are doing is you are opening up your mind to be able to feel that page with whatever it is that needs to come out. And so if that means that you need to start with, I hate my effing life, and that's what you start with, by all means, that is what you start with, but continue writing. Let the thoughts flow. Let it keep going. Let it keep moving on because that is going to be what gets you started. That is going to be what allows you to see deeper down inside. And that is what made the difference for me.
Likewise, that's what made the difference for me, as I shared with you. It saved me in prison. Journaling, writing the pain, writing what I saw, seeing the men cry, seeing the men fight, seeing all of that stuff. I wrote all of those words, everything that I saw, the razor sharp wires, the high powered assault weapons. Like I saw all of that, and it's just, it was very traumatic, but it healed me.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And I love that you've kept them as well so that you have those reminders. I was talking in my last podcast actually about this as well, of like the importance of seeing where we are, but also paying attention to where we have come from and being
Yeah.
able to put that whole journey together because it really does make a difference. So, Troy, I can't thank you enough for being a part of the podcast, for sharing so openly with everything that you've been through and what you are doing. Please tell everybody, how can they find you? How can they follow you? How can they be a part of your world?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Troy Alexander. My Instagram is the Troy Alexander. I'm not really, heavy on social, but you can follow me there. I'm also, we have our business social, which is T363 SKIN. More than welcome to follow me there. You can sign up to our landing page, t363.com. Email because we're getting ready to launch. So love to have you guys a part of the journey. Love to have you guys a part of what we're building. And it would be my honor. It would be my honor to show up for you guys every day and to show you that you can overcome anything. I'm so privileged to be here. I'm so thankful to be here. And please follow my journey. Please be on part of this. I'm a Black man who's a convicted felon who's changed his life around, and I'm building something special and just monumental. So I love all the support that I can get, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And of course, we'll make sure we have all of that information in the show notes. We'll make it super easy for you to find Troy, follow Troy, be a part of his mission, see where his journey is going. So, again, Troy, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. To everybody else that's out there listening, I know that you got something out of this. I know that there is something within what we were sharing and what we were stating that either hit you in the gut, that made you feel like you weren't alone, or that gave you the feeling that you know that it's time for you to do something different, whatever that may be. It can be something super small. Remember, small changes are what make us into where we want to go. And that's where we get to see the beauty of everything at the end. So until next time, Do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later. Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you love today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable